All right, welcome back to Midwest Speed Fest, everybody. It's me again. I'm Jaxler. We just did Whiplash.
There are legends that dwell.
Really cool game, fast-paced 3D platformer. We're gonna go in a completely different direction. This is Neopets: The Darkest Faerie for the Sony PlayStation 2, one of my favorite games of all time. If you've never seen this game before, this is a 3D action-adventure open-world game that was created by Idle Minds in 2005, which does indeed coexist in the Neopets extended lore and all that jazz. You might think that a Neopets game, that probably just sounds like really weird, probably trash or something like that. This game is actually really, really awesome. But the speedrun is not going to make it look like that. This is one of those rare games that the glitches, when you see them, will just make you laugh. I'm just going to prepare you for that in advance. But there have been a lot of people who have been working really hard on this game over the years, and even since the last time this was at Midwest Speed Fest, the run has dropped by almost 10 minutes off the world record. So we've made a lot of improvements to this game over the course of the past couple of years. But yeah, this is one of those games where you'll just kind of see it and probably won't make sense, but I'm going to try to do my best to make it make sense. Are we ready on time? Okay. Count me down, folks. We'll start from 3. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're going to go ahead and load in here. This game has 2 different playable characters, but in our first act, we're just going to be playing as Tor. Tor is a melee weapons user. He uses a sword, and his dream is to become a knight. And just like in any good 3D action-adventure Zelda-like, we're going to immediately start with a trick called Forced Escape, where I'm just going to jump backwards, grab that ledge, and we are now way, way out of bounds here. So what's going on here? Now, whenever you are out of bounds in this game, there is a fail-safe where the game creates a massive infinite floor at the y-coordinate of 0, so basically at the bottom of the world. So even though it looks like I'm just kind of running through the air, I'm on a giant floor here. And the way that it's programmed is that if you're on this floor and the game thinks that there's a part of a playable area that you should be standing on that's above you, it will teleport you on top of that. And that phenomenon is called an upwarp. And so even though we're down really far out of bounds, we're going to be able to use this to control our height pretty creatively here. So I'm looking for a specific spot up here, and just right about now, you're going to see me upwarp right here and just kind of instantly teleport, and then I'm going to take a detour to the left here. Now, if we wanted to, we could go back in bounds and go on with our, we just skipped 3 or 4 minutes of tutorial by doing what we did. I didn't even bother to explain it just because we were out of bounds so fast. But essentially, whenever I do one of these upwarps or go to specific spots out of bounds, essentially this game is broken up into different chunks of areas and tries to do that seamless open world thing, no load screens. So the way that ends up happening behind the scenes is that there are these different thresholds that are marked out by the game that determine when the next area is supposed to load. So one example is that green grassy plain right there, which will load in this green grassy plain. And then when I touch that, it tells the game to load in an area called Shadow Glen Woods. Now, Shadow Glen Woods, we are not supposed to be here for quite a moment, not until we go into a place called Meridell Village, try to become a squire, and then we're not allowed to become a squire, and then we have to go save our sister from Shadow Glen Woods. But we can just sequence break in here by just teleporting up here. This wall doesn't exist, and we're back in bounds. And so you might be asking yourself, well, why are we here? And it's not for any particular main quest reason, but it's actually to grab this yellow flower. Now, this yellow flower is actually for a side quest, and that might seem like, oh, side quest, slow, right? No, it is going to be used to set up a very important glitch once we get into Meridell, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. As we we're in bounds now, so this is kind of more so normal gameplay-ish. Something I'm going to be doing as I exit Shadow Glen Woods is jumping into a cutscene. Whenever you are jumping, I can go into a little bit more why when we get there later, but you are put at a third of your normal gravity value whenever you are in the jumping animation. And if you jump into a cutscene, it keeps your gravity locked at that 1/3 multiplier. And that's going to allow us to do something kind of tricky here called an L2 jump. I'm going to need a moment here to focus because this is a frame perfect input. That's the first one. Got one more here. Nailed them both. First try. Let's go. All right. So those allow us to go out of bounds here, and then we can do another up warp, and that lets us skip a bunch of intended parkour with a broken bridge section. So when you have the low gravity, that enables the use of something called L2 jumps, where you hold down the L2 combat strafe, and that allows you to run a little bit off the edge. And then if you let go of L2 and then the frame after press jump, for whatever reason, you get a longer jump than what's normally intended, and that's the only way we can actually clear those gaps with the current tool set that we have. So now we're going into Meridel Village for the first time. And something I did as I was walking into the cutscene, and I'm actually still holding the button now, is I opened up the consumables menu, the quick select, and held down the square button while going into the cutscene. And this activates something called the text skip glitch. We're not exactly sure why this works, but when you set it up into a cutscene, and the cutscene pulls up text boxes, if you continue to hold square, it will skip them like every other frame. So just watch right here, for example. Right here. Boom. Again, no idea why that happens, but it does. So in this moment right here, we have we want to go on a shopping trip, but we can't do the shopping trip until we run down this thief right here. So Conception, sorry. While we're on our way here, if you have time for one quick plug real quick before we get to some more nonsense.
Sounds great. I wanted to highlight a couple of new and important bid wars and incentives that we have going on. Namely, we have a rolling bid war for Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, which is the character choice. Now, what that means is between Luigi, Mario, Peach, and Toad, no matter what your donation is, whatever is in the lead, our runner is going to be the one using. So if it switches mid-run, you'll switch what character he's going to use. So get your donations in towards that. We also have a bid war open for the custom car skin and Hot Wheels World Race, as well as singing Pinky and the Brain song for Animaniacs. So get your donations in if you'd like to see any of those or have any input.
All right, so thank you, Conception. Right here, we're going to go ahead and turn in that yellow flower to Angus, who runs the potion shop. He's going to give us 500 Neo points, and then we're going to use that to buy a potion of Miracle Speed. We'll be talking about these a bit more later, but this is just going to speed up our movement for now. But we just set up a really interesting glitch here. So essentially, that text box that we saw at the end of the side quest, it has more than just text in it, or like, letters and characters and words and stuff. It also has something called a macro in it, and that is currently stored in the game's memory right now. And because the text box is so big, something really interesting happens where the most recent text box you've read is stored into the game's memory, but all these text boxes that we're seeing right here are much smaller than the one that we saw in the side quest. So parts of that side quest dialog box are still loaded into a dirty area of the game's RAM. And if I skip this text box in a very specific way, it will actually scroll the text box that I'm seeing past what's called the null terminator of the text box, which essentially denotes in the game's code where that text box is finished having text in it. So it reads past that into the dirty area of memory, and because that dirty area of memory is set up with that instruction to give us 500 Neo points, we can essentially repeat the text skipping process over and over and duplicate Neo points. Now, I could essentially do that infinitely if I wanted to, but we're going to stop at 10,000 Neo points here. We're going to use some of it here to buy a sword and shield. In the tutorial segment, we actually completely skipped how we're intended to get our first weapon. So we go ahead and buy the Squire's sword, just so we have something to defeat enemies with throughout the course of the game. And on top of that, we're also going to grab a shield, and she makes a great sound as well. I don't know why she is so angry, but she is. And so the shield you actually need in order to defeat the final boss. It is a hard requirement. So even with those two upgrades, we still have almost 9,000 Neo points in terms of open cash flow. And you saw that potion we got earlier. Well, we're going to go buy 18 more of them. Those are potions of Miracle Speed, and they essentially double our running speed on the ground. And each one saves about 40 seconds in terms of movement. So all that money is going to immediately go to good use here. Going to mash the square button. And then we're going to equip the potion and then leave the potion shop. And now we're done pretty much shopping for the rest of the run. So now that we have potions of Miracle Speed, and especially these new pieces of equipment, we're going to go back to sequence breaking a bit. So what we're going to attempt to do, this game is broken into 4 different acts. Act 1 you play as Tor, Act 2 you play as Roberta, who will be meeting a little bit later. Then in Act 3, they meet back up in this overworld area that we're in. And then Act 4, you go to another place called Altador and do a bunch of endgame stuff there. So what we're trying to do with this sequence break is essentially get to a location that is meant for Act 3 while we're still in Act 1 so that we can get a main quest upgrade much earlier than intended. And in order to start that process, I have to go for a frame-perfect trick here. So this is not going to work. I'm just going to take a drown warp right here, and then I'm going to attempt the pause buffer this. There we go. So I can use pauses to advance the game world by 1 frame at a time in order to sword strike on the perfect frame, and for whatever reason, that will just clip you through the kill plane part of the water and let us get out of bounds. Now, similar to what we were doing at the start of the run, I'm actually running to very specific thresholds while I'm out of bounds in order to trick the game into loading different parts of the level. So what we're navigating around right now is a place called Cogum Steps, which is a place that you're not allowed access to until you become a squire, which is a pretty mid portion of Act 1. But I have to do a pretty tricky up warp here in order to actually load the place I want to go, which is the Abandoned Mines, which is that Act 3 area I was talking about. Give me just 1 second. 1000, go. Good, perfect, okay. So I up warp on top of here. We're gonna wait until the effects come in and that spawns. Then if I touch that, that piece of collision will then trigger a giant black rectangle to appear, which that happens to be the Abandoned Mines, which is our goal. I'm gonna come across an invisible wall right here, and then I'm gonna nudge myself over here a little bit as a safety measure, because bad things can happen if you do that a little too fast. Then I'm gonna fall down here, jump, and we're back in bounds. There we go. So that whole sequence is really, really scary. If you mess up any of that, you will probably get upwarped into a river and die, and you have to start the whole sequence all over again. So now we are in the Abandoned Mines, which means if we complete this portion, we can get a really important upgrade later, which is why we're coming so far out of our way here. So we're going to be making more use of that potion of Mirka speed, and something that I'm doing, and I'll go into a bit more of this when I'm in Act 2, I'm currently using my combat strafe. Similar to Ocarina of Time, like the N64 Zelda games, there's a mechanic where if you run off of a ledge at a fast enough speed, the game will auto-jump in order to make the platforming easier. And we want to avoid that on little bumps in the road, because anytime you jump, you don't move at maximum speed. You move at a set controlled speed. And so what I'm doing is holding the L2 combat strafe, which oh, that's really bad. Okay, so that is an instant game over, so I'm going to have to load the save and do that out-of-bounds sequence again. That's really unfortunate. For some reason, my jump height got snubbed for some reason. That happens pretty rarely. That shouldn't take me too long to fix up here. So luckily, this is why we have backup saves. So this is one of those runs that, it's a Neopets game, so you'd be like, oh, that's probably just a joke, right? No, this game is pretty brutal sometimes. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that setup again here. I'm going to fall in the river on purpose here because the pause buffer setup that I use doesn't really work the first time when you load it from this save. So I'm actually using a saved here that is sort of illegit. 1000. We actually have, thanks to another runner of this game named Monster860, she wrote a suite of practice tools for this game. And one of those tools allows you to save anywhere instead of save points. So that allows me to save a little bit of time for like a marathon showing such as this. So I'm going to be doing that out of bounds bit again, but since we're kind of repeating the same sort of stuff, Conception, this would be another great time for plugs if you got anything.
Oh, I always got something to talk about. You know me. I'd like to give a little bit of a shout out here to the Midwest Speedfest Discord server as well as Midwest Speedfest Twitter, which are both very active, especially during marathon times. It is actually the best way to interact with our community and stay up to date on our events. So feel free to type !Discord in the chat if you're in the Twitch chat, or you can check out the Twitch bio for the link. And you can also see announcements posted at Twitter, which is twitter.com/MWSpeedfest. And Marathon VODs can also be found on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Midwest Speedfest. Shout out to all of the social media volunteers throughout this event as well. You all have been great.
Yeah, thank you all so much. While we're here as well, I also just want to shout out the crowd. I did not expect there to be this much of a turnout for a Neopets game at like 10 o'clock. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. I hope you all are really enjoying this so far. We've been doing some cool out-of-bounds stuff, but once we get out of the Abandoned Mines here, this is where the run really starts to snowball out of control. So I guess while we're here, I can talk a little bit more in depth about that combat strafing, or I'll just kind of like go over it again real quick because I kind of got interrupted by me being an idiot and falling into the lava. So there's that auto hop mechanic like I was saying, and this L2 button is like a combat strafe. So you can think of it as like Z-targeting from like a modern Zelda game. And it essentially allows you to lock your camera in place and sort of pivot around. And I don't know why it is, but it disables that auto hop mechanic. So you'll see how I kind of just like randomly jumped even though there was nothing there. That's because like how the auto hopping works in this game is actually a little bit buggy with how it was executed. But all right, we got past the lava, so now we're going into the boss fight here. This is Ixie Chieftain. We're going to be attempting to do a stun lock here, thanks to our new sword and shield, using a technique called shield canceling. We're going to be starting off the fight with a 3-hit combo, and then if I hold the shield after performing the combo, oh, that's unlucky. So sometimes Ixie Chieftain will go right there, which is bad luck. So if I hold down the shield, oh, can you cooperate, please? There we go. So if you hold down the shield, oh, I appreciate it. That was a little rough. It normally doesn't go that bad, but I got a really rare pattern there where you essentially clank with a bit of geometry on the floor, and that messes up the stun lock, but I got a decent chunk of it. Essentially, if you do a 3-hit combo and then pull up your shield, it cancels some of that follow-through animation on the end of the attack. And so what that does is allows you to start up your next combo a bit faster, and that's actually too little of time for normally the Ixie Chieftain to be able to retaliate, which allows us to completely stun lock it. Now this right here is really funny. In this main quest, you're supposed to save all of the villagers, but if you just save the mayor, you're just done with the quest and everyone just magically reappears in the village. No idea why. But yeah, no, anyone at home can do that. It's really funny. So yeah, we're going to pop another potion of Mirka speed here, and so now we have done what we needed to do to finish the Act 3 portion of saving Kog'Maw Village. You come here in both Act 1 and Act 3 to help them out with their Ixie problem. And so doing this in Act 3, like Act 1, will still give us the reward. And it's going to be this is pretty far out of our way. You know, we're several minutes out of our way here, even though we could be progressing the rest of the game. But you'll see, I don't want to spoil what it is quite yet, but the upgrade we're going to be getting is very, very, very powerful for the speedrun here. So again, going into this cutscene, because it's a cutscene that spawns text boxes, I can open the consumables menu, hold down the square button, and it's going to let me rapid fire skip through the text. So now that this is, in casual play, this is the second time we saved the village. We are the hero of this village, and now we are going to get rewarded handsomely for our troubles. So what do we get for this? A potato sack. Yeah, so we get a potato sack, right? But this isn't any ordinary potato sack. This is a magical potato sack, and it's going to let all of our hopes and dreams come true here. And we're going to be making use of it pretty much immediately here. So what it's actually supposed to do is it's supposed to be used as a disguise to get into Meridell Castle in Act 3. But it has a very broken ability to generate a ton of lag. Because whenever you equip or de-equip the cloak, it changes your character model. And it has to load that off of the game's hard disk. And that causes a lot of lag because it's loading a lot of information. And so I can use that lag to do this. Whee! So that's a mega jump. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm using the lag to be able to jump and then pause buffer at the same time. So essentially the frame after I decloak, I jump and then pause. And then when I unpause, the game for a very short window considers me to still be grounded or in a running animation. And that allows me to actually do another jump during that brief window. And it stacks the momentum of the two jumps together, giving me like this ridiculously high jump. And that let me clear over the bridge and get me back into the normal area of play. All right, so now that we have all of our broken tools available to us, we're going to go sequence break to the end of Act 1. There's normally this whole giant main quest where you learn how to become a knight, you get permission from your parents to become a knight, you do a bunch of squire-related tasks and missions. It's a pretty arduous process, but we're going to be skipping pretty much all of that. I'm going to intentionally fall into the river in order to put me at a closer point to my destination, which happens to be Illisen's Glade. We also pick up the water moat there, which we won't be using until Act 3, but it's going to be very important eventually. And so now we're going to go into what many people would call the signature trick or signature glitch of this game, which is called ledge flying. And so what we're going to do is we're going to walk up to the very edge of this platform here. And then if I do this sequence of inputs properly, magic will happen. So that is the correct glitch, but I got the wrong angle. So ledge flying is essentially the same thing as a mega jump, but instead of buffering a second jump, you're essentially combining a jump with a ledge grab, which allows you to continue the ledge grab animation with your jump momentum, and that sends you flying. And so this glitch has a couple of other properties, such as giving you no clip, so we are through that wall. And we'll go into a bit more depth in a moment on how ledge flies are achieved and like some of their properties depending on positioning. But I don't have time because we're going to be doing another broken glitch here. So we're using this out of bounds to get into Illison's Glade early because the bridge is broken. And then we're also going to be skipping the quest where we save the knights here by doing that and then that. And for whatever reason, those platforms are just close enough to the out of bounds that we can actually perform the upwarp glitch on them. And that lets us get all the way to the top of the treetops here without having to save any of the knights. And we wouldn't be able to anyway because they're currently unloaded. So now we're going to be doing something interesting. I have to go to the very start of this area here in order for the boss to load in. I'm actually going to stand still here. I accidentally popped a potion in Miracle Speed when I didn't mean to. And I'm going to be doing another ledge fly here, but I don't really know how to do it with Potion of Miracle Speed active because having the higher speed can actually impact like where you have to stand, and I don't really know the setup for this, so we're just going to wait for that to turn off good. I'm going to jump, grab this ledge, and then I'm going to poke my sword a couple of times here just to put myself at the perfect distance. Circle, hold forward, hold jump, and the run button, and now I'm going to start floating into the air. And so what this is going to do, hopefully if I don't get sniped, because that can happen, of course, is this will float me all the way into the cutscene trigger for the boss fight and let us skip all the rest of the intended movement. So I actually got kind of a low angle here, so I have to go ahead and manually walk into the cutscene trigger, but that's essentially what you want to look for there. Thank you. Yeah, that one can be a little bit scary. That's another one of those ones I have safety save for. So this is Narfus. Narfus will either explode instantly or take like 2 years to defeat. We'll see which version we get of him. So Narfus, what are you doing, buddy? 1, 2. All right, let's see if he cooperates. Nope, he's not going to cooperate. All right, so we're going to go into this cutscene here. Essentially what I'm trying to do is if I do like sword slashes in a specific way, it's a little inconsistent, but you can essentially do multi-hits on him. And it's not super consistent. We don't have amazing setups for it at the moment, but it allows you to absolutely crush his health bar, but we'll just do it the normal way. That's fine too. It's a pretty straightforward boss. You just want to block his chain attacks and keep him stun locked so that he doesn't jump up into the air. And then going into this cutscene, I'm going to set up the text skip glitch again, then skip this cutscene with the X button, and then as I go into this cutscene, the menu will persist, and as I keep holding square, the text skip glitch will work. So now that we've defeated that boss, that activated a crucial flag in the game's memory to allow us to proceed to the end of Act 1. Because this is like the last thing that you do before you're like, oh crap, things have gone south pretty bad, we need to go back to Mirrodale Castle. So we're going to go ahead and do that in a bit of a roundabout way. Ooh, nice, strike pegs. So we're going to go ahead and take 2 of those, partly for safety, but also because the cutscene, for whatever reason, stops our ledge flying from working. So if I pick up a new item for the first time, it corrects itself for some strange reason. We don't really understand why. I'm going to do another ledge fly here at this corner, which is going to clip me into this wall, and then I can jump, and that's going to get me the rest of the way out of bounds here. So in Act 1, you're normally once you do all the Squire quests, that's how you are granted access into Mirrodale Castle. But we didn't do that, so the door's now permanently locked. But luckily for us, we have a way of, for lack of a better term, wrong warping into Mirrodale Castle. And so what we can actually do is load in a load transition for getting into Mirrodale Castle that was originally intended to be a part of Act 3, but was never implemented into the final game. But its properties and like hitbox are all still there. So I'm going to walk a tightrope between 2 loading planes so that I can deload Mirrodale Village. So we're walking through an unloaded Mirrodale Village right now. And then what I'm going to do is once I get into the proper position, I'm going to do an up warp to start the process of loading in Meridel Village, and then run all the, like, scurry my way over to where that loading trigger is that was left over. So it's right underneath the middle spire right there, so I just line myself up with it, use my Potion of Miracle Speed buff in order to sprint right to it, and then when you see that water plane in the background disappear like that, I'm going to go ahead and pause, and then the game's going to take like forever to load here. Then I can equip my cloak, decloak, and I have magically appeared inside the castle. Oh, I got the fast version too. So if you do that right, you actually spawned in, clipped inside the wall, and that saves 5 seconds. That's actually really hard to do. So I got a little bit lucky there, actually, which is pretty nice. All right, so doesn't stop there though. Still some more tricky stuff coming up here. I'm gonna do a ledge fly off of my bed in order to clip through this wall. This one's a little bit annoying sometimes because the bed really wasn't meant to be interacted with in this way, but you can if you ask it nicely. I'm being a little bit aggressive here, so let me give this. Come on, game. I do not know. Tor is being a little bit cranky right now, so give me a couple of tries here. I promise this is cool. There we go. And so for whatever reason, the y=0 plane, thank you. Save your applause for the next one. The next one's the hard one. So the y=0 plane for this level is actually way above the first floor, so we can teleport on top of the first floor and then fall into the cutscene trigger. Now this is arguably one of, if not the hardest ledge flies to perform in the entire game. This is the Ottoman ledge fly. If I do this properly, this will let me skip the entire collapse sequence, but I actually popped a Potion of Miracle Speed when I didn't mean to. So this is going to make my life incredibly miserable. Oh, this setup actually looks perfect. Oh, yeah, so that's why this is miserable. So there are 3, like, evil dark fairy sisters that are trying to, like, kill me. And if they're too close, Tor will do that and pull up the shield, and this becomes an absolute nightmare to deal with. So give this a couple more tries. This looks good. Hold on a second. Come on. We got it. Let's go. Okay. Yeah, so the more time that takes, the more it snowballs out of control. And the reason why that's so hard is because you need a straight angle ledge fly to make that work. And the way that you get a perfectly horizontal ledge fly is by being on the tippy edge of whatever surface you're trying to ledge fly off of, which is really hard because the Ottoman is tiny. On top of that, if your angle's too shallow, you hit the floor before you can clip through the wall, and it cancels your ledge fly. If you angle too far to the left, then you actually hit that desk on the side, which is one of the few things that isn't a floor that can actually interrupt a ledge fly. So you have a very narrow frame in order to fit that ledge fly in. So I'm really glad that I got that eventually, because there's a non-zero chance I could have died there if I let that go on any longer. So we have now successfully made it to Act 2. This is where we get introduced to Roberta. She, in terms of the game's lore, she is the niece of the King of Brightvale, and she is a sorceress in training, being pushed into being a diplomat, but she really wants to be a sorceress as her profession. So unfortunately, she left her wand at home, so we're going to pick up 3 different ingredients for creating a wand so we can make a makeshift one. And ironically enough, we're going to be using that makeshift wand for the rest of the game. But yeah, Roberta's segment is a lot more straightforward than Tor's first segment is because the inventories do not merge. Tor still has the cloak, the magical potato sack with him, but Roberta doesn't get that until we meet the 2 characters up at the end of Act 2 / start of Act 3. So this entire segment, even though it's a little bit lengthy, like completely zeroes in on the movement. So for example, you'll get to see like a really good example of how fast the text can get skipped through here. Otherwise, I would have to just mash through all of this, and it's like really, really slow. Another thing to note is that because Roberta is, of royal descent, she actually starts with some money in her pocket. So that will allow us to buy 2 potions of Miracle Speed at the start here, and which is really crucial because we don't have any of the money that Tor has duplicated by robbing that town's guard infinitely, like we did at the beginning of Act 1. So we're going to pick up 2 potions of Miracle Speed, but we're not going to use them yet. We're actually going to save them until we have the most amount of running, like, point A to point B. And on our way here, we're going to... this old lady wants us to save her cat from the tree, but that's just a mere suggestion. We don't actually have to save the cat. I'm not kidding. Like, she's like, please help me! And you just don't have to. You just don't. Anyway, so we're going to be going down the stairs here, grabbing one more reagent as well as a light mote. You've been seeing me pick up a bunch of different element motes throughout the game, but I haven't really been using too many of them yet. There is one puzzle at the end of Act 4 that requires that we hit switches with a weapon of each element's mote. And so we're going to make sure that we have at least one copy of each mote by the time that we get to that puzzle so that we don't have to find backups later on here. All right, so now that we have all 3 pieces of the wand, we're going to give them to our mentor Saradar here in order to reconstruct that wand, and then he's going to teach us how to do combat. The nice thing about this combat tutorial is it's the same every time. So if I know what the inputs are going to be, I can do the required attack and then set up the text skip glitch while I'm waiting for the next line of dialogue. And then earlier, I pre-menued to the fire mode because I knew that I was going to be using a fire mode here for this part of the tutorial, and then set up the text skip glitch. We also get a free armor upgrade for no reason. I don't know why they give us this armor upgrade this early, but it's pretty cool. Wrong thing. Game? Okay. There we go. So we're going to pop our first potion of Mirka speed here. This is an interesting case in the speedrun where this is pretty much like a movement and running segment, but this is like the easiest way to tell the difference in skill level between someone who is new to the speedrun and someone who has a lot of experience with this game is how well they're able to control their combat strafe and avoid little hops like that. So whenever you get those little auto hops, again, it puts you at a default aerial speed, which is a lot slower than this potion of Mirka running speed. So what I'm doing a lot, again, is holding down that L2 combat strafe button, but it's not just as simple as that. Because normally when you hold down the L2 combat strafe, if you move to the left or right in L2 combat strafe, you pivot, and if you try to turn with the camera, that pause that you saw happen where I'm held still, and it just pivots me in place. So in order to actually be able to do that sort of diagonal strafing, I'm making use of a technique that we call ESS position, which we kind of stole the name of from N64 Zeldas. But essentially, I'm holding up, and then very slightly left or right, just barely outside where the dead zone on the controller would be. And so what that does is, for whatever reason, it puts us at this perfect angle where we can continue running forward while also being able to move around by tilting the camera. And that's how I'm able to move around. But it's a pretty tight angle on the control stick that you have to hold. And there's a bit of a technique to how you move around in this state as well, because your turning speed is a bit different. There's a bit of a wind up to your turning acceleration. It's kind of like driving a whole different vehicle here. So it takes a little bit of practice to get, and the best runners are really able to make the most use out of this in order to skip as many auto hops as possible. All right, so we're going into a clock tower puzzle here. Essentially, the Darkest Faerie is trying to take over Fairyland, spoilers, and we are trying to make a distraction so that we can escape her minions. So we are going to go ahead and do some very aggressive grunting. So what I'm doing here is rotating between up and up, left, or right. And what that does is it resets the push animation. Normally, it's a push and then a pause, and then a push and then another pause. But if you do this aggressive grunting strategy, then it actually just skips that part of the follow-through animation and makes it one continuous push motion, which saves a couple of seconds. Oh, we almost crushed the Noil down there. I would have had to reset if that happened. Luckily, he's fine. That Noil is what's called a pet. Not very useful for the speedrun, but incredibly adorable. And we love him. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit more aggressive grunting, and then we're going to do one more through here, and then after I do this last one, I can actually start running during this last bit of the cutscene to try to get up the stairs a bit. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of another running segment. I'll pop another speed potion through here in a bit, but Conception, this would be another great time if you'd like to fit any more messages in.
Absolutely. We got some love for you here in the donation comments. So we have $2 from Ashlyn. I think I've heard of her, who says, "Hi, Jaxler. This game is so cute. It's inspired me to go and visit my Neopets. I was obsessed growing up and still play it from time to time. I'll also have to buy this game. What are your favorite Neopets? Mine were always Jub Jub and Kugra. Thanks. Bye."
Thank you so much. And yes, please pick up a copy of this game. I didn't mean that to come across that aggressively, but this game is so cool. I love this game so much. And The whole reason I really love like running and playing games from this era is they tried like a lot of. This comes from a really interesting era of 3D game development, where the visual technology was there for people to execute upon a lot of different like types of gameplay concepts, but the rules and like the norms of 3D game design weren't completely put in place yet because it was still a period of experimentation. So you have a lot of games like Neopets where they try like all this like really cool off-the-wall stuff because they just had the license to do that. So like in this game, for example, you have like the real emphasis on open world exploration and this moat magic system, which I've never seen in another game like this. You know, so yeah, please play this game. Anyway, to answer the other part of the question, I was always a fan of loops growing up, and Akara a little bit, I guess, but I'm kind of biased because I honestly played this game a lot more than the actual website. But I can confirm that this game does tie into the lore, and if you buy a complete in-box copy, you will get a limited edition holo Neopets TCG card of Roberta, if you needed any more incentive as to buy this game. So this is the endless staircase puzzle. The way that this puzzle is supposed to play out is that whichever palm on the statue is facing open, that's the way you have to go up or down the stairs. Otherwise, it infinitely loops. But it's the same puzzle solution every time. And if you know the threshold where the game is considered you having gone up or down the stairs, then you can double back and forth pretty much immediately and skip a bunch of cycles of going up and down the stairs, letting you get by that section really, really quickly. And so we'll see that one more time because we will be doubling back through here at the end of Act 3, but that is the end of Act 2. And so now we're going to have Tor and Roberta meet up. Yo, why are you clapping for that? That was a running segment. No, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate the support, everybody. I'm just being goofy. But this is where things start to get a little off the rails again. There's a big, learn how to do combat with both characters sequence here, but we really don't want to do that. But the devs put an invisible wall in our way here, so I'm going to attempt to clip past it here. This is a really tricky ledge fly as well. We'll see how many times this takes me to get. So that's a straight angle ledge fly, so that is the slower variant. This will work. So you're going to see I teleport right here, and then I have to do a bit of a backup adjustment where I'm just going to, my camera, just jump up here, and that's going to grab a ledge that you can't really see through the wall unless you know what's there, like I do. And then we can just jump the rest of the way through, and that gets us through the wall. So I actually got that ledge fly first try. That's another one of those ledge flies where it's like the longer that it takes, the more that the enemies can heck you, so... All right, right here we're going to do another one of those mega jumps. Okay, so I actually I thought I had set it up properly. Give me a second. So what I'm doing here is I'm interrupting a jump with a ledge grab in order to essentially put my gravity value at 1/3 of its normal, so I get a massive jump right there. I actually didn't get the height I need. I got the glitch properly, but because my gravity was not set up properly, I actually pretty much got no height off of it. So now we're horrendously out of bounds again. And so... Act 3 is like by far my favorite part of the game. You get to go to all these cool different locales. The game pretty much like completely opens up to you at that point. And there's all these cool locations you can go to, all these bosses to fight, all these quests to do. And the tragic thing is that the same place where Act 1 ends is where Act 3 ends. And if you remember from earlier, we have a very straightforward, well, not straightforward, but we have a very consistent way of wrong warping into Meridel Castle. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to kind of backdoor it to a degree where we're going to come in from a different location, but we're essentially going to be doing the same sequence break where I'm going to need levels to load in. Okay, good. I'm using visual cues throughout here as well based on like the geometry that's in front of me to know where to go. This is just one of the things you have to accept when you're learning to speedrun Neopets is you're just going to have to memorize where to go. But there's luckily a lot of good visual cues that I have to know what spots to go where. But we're going to touch the exact same piece of geometry here and do the exact same wrong warp setup, so we'll see if I can get 2 for 2 on the wall clip. It's pretty unlikely, but I will try to go for it here. And if I mess it up, then I have ways of backing it up, but we'll see. So I'm going to wait for that water plane to despawn, go a little bit this way, try to get that wall clip. It's probably not going to work, but we'll see. Wait, did I actually get it? Nope, not quite. Almost had it. But yeah, so now we've wrong warped back in, but once we're inside Meridel Castle, this is where things get very different. This is one of my favorite parts of the run because we're going to do some more shenanigans here that are not related to our cloak here. Well, except for this part, which, we need the cloak to do this bit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this ledge, and that puts me at the perfect distance to get the perfect angle ledge fly. So that sets me down right on the other side of this wall, and then I can upwarp all the way up here. And then this chamber up here, I'm going to go ahead and hit a loading zone trigger here just for later. So this is the boss fight. So we just warped all the way up to the boss fight, and then I'm going to take 1 tap, 2 tap of this first. These are the 3 Faerie sisters that chased us during the collapse, and they are currently non-functional at the moment. And the reason why they're just letting us wail on them here is because we did not go through all the proper cutscenes and required enemy fights beforehand in order for their AI to activate. So we're just going to swing on them here. And unfortunately, because their AI is broken at the moment, their death animations won't actually play. So the best that we can do at the moment is just bring them down to 1 HP. And that's going to be really helpful because we are really under-geared at this point. And by bringing them down to 1 HP, it makes the fight a lot safer because we can essentially one-tap them with Roberta's makeshift wand. So right here, I'm going to do a bit of a tricky strat called a nice displacement angle ledge fly. Essentially, you're holding one angle for the ledge fly and then changing it to another midway through in order to displace the angle that you get sent at, which allows you to do a ledge fly off of that ottoman, and that makes it way more consistent. So right here, I'm going to make use of that water moat and do a charged R2 attack. That has the property of making a giant ring of frost around you, and you can use that to freeze enemies in place. And these minion warriors went down really, really quick. Those enemies are obnoxious. They have like some of the best defense in any game I've ever seen. So now we're going to do the 3-hit combos with the shield cancel stun lock. Again, what I'm doing here is I'm pulling up the shield during the end animation of the 3-hit combo. And what that does is it cancels out of the animation early, and then if I let go of the shield, I can go ahead and start my next attack, and that lets me keep them stun locked. You also saw me do like the quickest menu in the West right there. What you do when you're menuing for motes in this game with the quick select is you put on the mote that you want, and then you go ahead and like put the cursor over a mote that you know you're going to select a bit later. So that way the next time you're equipping motes, all you have to do is just open the mote menu, press the circle button, and then you're good. And that allows me to actually do it mid-combo, which allows me to continue the combo and avoid getting hit, because those like colossal enemies there can actually do a lot of damage. And these minion artillery are rude. They like to dodge your attacks a lot and have massive amounts of iframes, and then they just like to jump away and then look at a wall. Come on. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, wrong motes. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that after we get through this cutscene. So there's going to be like 3 or 4 different cutscenes that are all going to play here in a row because we did things so out of order that it's just like, I am frightened. All right, so we're going to go ahead. I have my motes in the right spot. I accidentally used a potion of Mirka speed, but that's fine because I think this save file has more than I'm supposed to anyway. So that Faerie's, oh, I gotta be careful. Yeah, so you see how like much damage that I took there? That's why we do the cheese strat. You can get like insta-gib there if you're not careful. So I'm gonna be doing a wall clip here. A slight photosensitivity warning because the screen will shake a little bit, so just a quick warning, but it'll be over in a moment. So here comes the warning. We're good. No need for a warning anymore. You can just like run at that wall and it just gives up. It's a lot easier if you were under the influence of a potion of Mirka's speed. So that's why we don't really do anything like that when we're here in Act 2, because we don't really have the potions to go around yet. But we're going to make our way back through the endless staircase, and we basically do a bit of a running segment and then a button switch puzzle in order to get into Act 4, in which more chaos will continue to ensue. So Conception, this would be another great time for messages if you got anything.
For sure. We had a $10 donation come through from Monster860 who said, "Hi, Jaxler. I'm so proud of you for learning that text box manipulation glitch on such short notice. Good luck with your run."
Thank you so much. So Monster, she is actually another speedrunner of this game. She wrote all the practice tools for this game, has done extensive work like decompiling and modding the game so that we can understand as much of it as possible. And she is responsible for shaving off at least, I want to say 20 to 30 minutes or more off of like the speed run. No, more than that, maybe like 40 at this point. She has done a lot of incredible work for this community. So I'll say this again at the end of the run, but huge shout outs to Monster. And Monster also giving a little bit of spoilers for some of the stuff I'm going to go for. She was actually helping me when I was streaming the other night to learn something new I'm going to attempt to show off during the glitch exhibition after this run. But we're almost towards the end of the run. So we are now going into Act 4. There's going to be a lot of FMV cutscenes that we're going to be skipping. And this is where the Cloak of Heroes really starts to save time. We're going to save literal hours off of casual gameplay here. So Act 4 is this really sprawling world of Altador, which I think got implemented into the website like after this game dropped. But we're going to just do a ledge flight. It's a really cool place, but unfortunately the elevator to exit and get towards the end of Act 4 is just right there. So you're supposed to go through this whole giant sprawling main quest to save 4 different districts in Altador and, you know, take care of all the monsters in there. There's like a park district, a financial district, combat district or something like that. I don't remember. But we just skipped like 2 or 3 hours of gameplay. So that's cool. So that was the last ledge fly of the run. This is going to be the last mega jump of the run. You can do a ledge fly here, but a mega jump is way, way safer. So what I'm going to do is a mega jump through this wall, which doesn't have any collision, and then if I pivot to the left midair, I actually fall down onto the bridge down here, which lets me completely skip Jesus Christ, completely skip a series of puzzles that you're supposed to do. So we're doing that elemental switch puzzle that I was alluding to earlier. I'm doing some really cool movement through here where I'm essentially menuing and moving and attacking all at the same time. And I can accomplish that by using the quick select while using the R2 button to attack, because if I were to use my circle button to attack, it would just equip a mote. So you have to use basically a single swipe or like an instant like swing of your charge attack in order to get that to work. So we have now sequence broke through all of Act 4, so that is several hours of gameplay just gone. And now we are going into the climactic boss fight with the darkest of fairies, the Darkest Faerie. I don't know if she has a first name, but she is the Darkest Faerie. All right, so this fight is broken up into 2 phases. This is where we need the shield in order to beat the game, because in Tor's phase, the way that this works is that she's going to shoot an elemental projectile at us, and we have to reflect it back at her, and we can only reflect it back with a shield with the properly aligned mode. But luckily for us, those rainbow motes, the stars, the Nova and Supernova motes, are super effective against every kind of Neopet. So we can go ahead and use that to reflect that. That's the first phase done. Then I'm going to stand in the corner, shoot my makeshift wand at her, and that's the boss fight. That's it. That's just, no, it's just that straightforward in casual play. We think that there was some more like gameplay to that there was supposed to be there, but eventually got cut due to budget cuts and time restraints and stuff like that. But we're at the end of the game, actually. So we got this cutscene right here, and then we're going to skip this FMV, and then time is going to be, we're going to call time as soon as it starts to fade to black. So get ready on time. Time. All right, what was my final time?
We owe you many thanks.
46. Okay, not bad.
Because of you,
that's not bad
Altador is
considering
restored to
the absolute
and Neopet
fiasco
is
that
safe
was
from the
Drakenridge
most pernicious influence.
and dying in the lava.
The
But
Darkest
other than that,
Fairy
if that weren't for that, it might have been like a
became of
low
her?
42.
Don't worry.
So
She's been
other
placed
than that,
somewhere
I
we
played
can
pretty
keep
well.
a
So I'm pretty
close
happy with how
eye
that
on
went.
her.
So this is a great cutscene as well, because that's what happens to the Darkest Fairy now. She becomes a statue. So you see this cutscene, and then credits. So that's Neopets the Darkest Faerie, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the any % portion of this showcase. But because y'all are so generous and raised a whole lot of heckin' money for Children's Cancer Fund, I can't remember the name. I'm so sorry. But because you all are so generous, we're going to do a glitch exhibition. So we're going to skip the credits right here. I'm going to turn off my PS2 and then boot it back up. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of start going and rolling right into that, actually, if that's totally fine. Cool. Yeah, we're probably running behind, so I'm sure they appreciate this. But I'm going to go ahead and turn on the practice tool for this game. So you can see Monster860, she's the one who actually wrote this. I'm using an older version, so she's probably going to be a little angry at me. But what this is going to do is this is going to, when I boot up the game with this program set up, it's actually going to soft mod the game in order to give it a whole bunch of different range of practice functionality and stuff like that. So things like an entire extra 100 pages of save files, the ability to load into any area of the game via its hexadecimal value in the game's code, the ability to give yourself any item, the ability to give yourself as much money as your heart could desire, set game flags, get a map of all loading triggers in an area. It's absolutely unbelievable how comprehensive this practice tool is. And I highly recommend that anyone who wants to try to use this stuff, I actually have a tutorial series on YouTube where I go over exactly not only how to speedrun this game, but also how to use and set up these practice tools on console. So if you're interested in that, feel free to shoot me a message. You might be able to just find it on YouTube as well. But if you're having trouble finding it, just feel free to shoot me a message. So one of the other things, and I'll show this as well real quick, is we can also do something called show coordinates. And that'll let us show a bunch of game data in real time as well. So I'll just briefly go over what some of this means because it will become important for some of the stuff I'm about to show you in this glitch exhibition. So those red, green, and blue numbers represent where we are in the game world. So that represents our X, Y, and Z coordinate in the game world, okay? So that's just like where the game thinks we are. That SPD, the light blue, that's our speed. That's how fast we're going. So when I'm running, we're going at 9.64 units per second, I believe. And if we jump, I go to 9. And again, that's why when we were doing the speed run, we actually don't like to jump a lot. It's because we actually move just a tiny bit slower. And then that dark blue value, we won't worry about the yellow one. That one's not super important. The dark blue value is called GRV, or gravity. And so I was talking earlier in the speed run about a little bit about how the gravity works. And so normally when you're on the ground, your gravity is set to 1. And so the reason, and when you jump, you go from 0.3 gravity until the apex of your jump, where you go to 0.35 of your gravity. And then when you touch ground again, you go back to 1.0 gravity, which is the standard. And the reason it's set up like that, I'll give you an example here. These stair steps. If you had low gravity, then you would kind of just like hover off of these after you fall off of something. And the visual effect would be really weird. So that's kind of why the gravity is set like that. But as you see right there, if my gravity is 1.0, I grab a ledge, it interrupts that gravity getting reset, and so now my gravity is at a third of what it's normally supposed to be. And we kind of went into that a little bit during the speed run. But what we're going to do now is, with that set up, I'm going to show you a couple of glitches that aren't really used in speedruns, but are hilarious. So thank you again all for your donations. We'll go ahead and start explaining stuff. So this one's a little bit input intensive, so I'll explain how this works a bit. And then if I shut up, that's because I am trying to repeat this as much as possible for maximum effect. So this is something called cloak dashing. So what a cloak dash is, we're essentially doing the mega jump glitch that we were doing earlier, but instead of doing the mega jump, we keep running forward, and then mid-air, we repeat the inputs. And every time we do that, we gain about 10 units of speed. So let me give it, so our running speed right now, 9.64. Let's see how fast we can go, shall we? Oh, I did the inputs wrong. Sorry. So there's like a whole bunch of other tricks that I'm going to be doing in like whole bunches of different button combos. So I'm a little all over the place right now, but I remember how to do this. Give me a second. A little bit APM heavy, so I'm sorry if I go a little bit quiet here, but I want to see if I can get to the skybox. Yeah, you heard me right. Yeah, so we're already up to 55 speed. I think my record is like 200 something. And so it's not going to be super apparent how fast we're going until I kind of let it go. But let me see how much speed I can build up here first. So you can see I'm getting a little bit further and further away from the camera every time I repeat the glitch. So now we're past 100. One or two more times real quick, and then I'll let go, and I'll show you all how fast we're going. So I'm trying to turn the camera right now, but I'm moving so fast that the camera can't get behind Tor right now. So now it's finally letting us turn, and then you can see how far back all the particle effects were because we were going so fast. And so, how far are we? That's where we started. So now the funny thing is if I actually continue on over here, I don't know if I actually, yeah, I'm a little bit far away from the skybox, but if you keep walking in this direction, because there's that infinite floor at y equals 0, you can clip through the skybox. So it just becomes this giant ominous black void. I'm not going to do it because it's actually going to take me a couple of minutes with the distance I'm at in order to get there. So that's the first glitch I wanted to show you all, was cloak dashing. You might be wondering why we don't do that in the speedrun, because we're building up so much speed. The problem is it builds up so much speed that you go flying too far away from any loading trigger that would allow you to get to anywhere meaningful. So even though it is hype as all hell, it is not really used in speedruns at all. So this next glitch is a little bit more of a party trick, but I'm going to use it to then demonstrate another really interesting feature of this game. So what I'm going to do is essentially a similar kind of trick to the mega jump, but after I buffer the first jump and the pause, I'm going to let go of all the buttons while I go over something that can give me a ledge grab. And if I do it right, something very funny will happen. But this is a little bit tricky, so we'll see how many tries it takes for me to get. Unless I just get it first try. Yeah, so now Tor is moonwalking. I can't move. I can't control anything. I can pop a potion of Mirka speed, but essentially this is a soft lock. So essentially what Tor is trying to do is we made him go up and over the grabbable ledge at such a speed where he got close enough to try to ledge grab it, but got pushed too far away to actually be able to grab it. So he's infinitely trying to walk back over to the ledge that he was trying to grab, and there is no ledge for him to grab onto. So he's just going to be pulling a Michael Jackson until he goes into infinity. So the reason that I show you this is to so part of this is to demonstrate that you can essentially continue this infinitely. And so something I did with this is I set up this glitch, and then I turned off my monitor, left my console on, and went to bed. And so, when I did that, I made a save file. Because once I turned my screen on the next morning, something very horrifying appeared on my screen. Allow me to demonstrate. So this is what happens when you travel to negative 859,190 on the z-axis. You turn into a sleep paralysis demon. So if you turn the camera, more wild stuff happens. So what is essentially happening here is an example of something in like computer programming called floating point rounding. So decimals, so any non-whole number in a game's code can be represented in a couple of different ways. And a floating point value is one way of representing those. But when those types of data values get really, really big, there's a bit of rounding error that accumulates just based on the way that it's set up. And because of that, the distance relationships between each of the different parts on Tor's model are completely messed up because of all of this rounding error that's accumulated, which is why he becomes a kaleidoscope. So yeah, if you want to do this, do that moonwalk and then leave your console on for like 24 hours. If you want to do the most useless glitch of all time. The camera is also completely screwed up. The AI or the UI just wants to completely like pull itself off my CRT right now. So that's the infinite moonwalk and the sleep paralysis demon glitch. So next one I'm going to show you is sort of a 2-in-1 combo here. The first glitch. So this is not something that is used in any percent, but is used in a couple of different categories, such as no cloak, which is a any percent route where you're not allowed to get the magical potato sack that allows you to completely break the game. So essentially, this save file is set up in such a way where I am playing as Tor, and I cannot switch to Roberta because she is knocked out. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is what's called a revive warp. So if you have a potion of revival equipped and you press the triangle button, it'll revive the other character that's knocked out. So what I can do is press the select button, and then in the period of time where the game lags trying to pull up the select menu, I can press triangle, and so you hear that sound start to play, the screen goes completely to white. And so the game is trying to revive Roberta right now, but it's been interrupted by this dialogue screen. So now what I can do is, because it's trying to do that revival process, if I load in a completely different save file, what it's going to end up doing is sort of merging like the states of the two files together in interesting ways. And so the effects of this will depend on the characters that set up the glitch and the characters that activated the save file. So in this instance, I revived Roberta into a save that was created by just Tor. And so what that has done is it has allowed me to teleport Roberta into Act 1, which is normally not possible. Roberta is never able to get here until Act 3 at the earliest. And so that's one of the side effects of the glitch. Now, in certain speedruns, what you can do is if you revive the same character as the one that made the save, it will take the XYZ coordinates of your character in your previous save and apply them to the new one. So that's a way that you can actually use to get out of bounds in speedruns where you're not allowed to use the magical potato sack, because you can just teleport right out of bounds with that glitch. So you might be wondering why I did kind of the party trick version where I just become Roberta in Act 1, which is, it's cool, especially if you grew up with this game. But that's not the complete reason why I have this set up. Roberta is not supposed to be in Act 1. This is not intended behavior. And so this Act 1 file is set up in such a way where we still haven't seen the intro to Meridell Village cutscene with the thieves. And so if I bring Roberta into this cutscene and watch through it, something very funny will happen at the end of the cutscene. So we're going to have to wait to sit through the cutscene here for a moment. So I'll let you all shiver in anticipation. Hope you all are having a great night. And again, thank you all for being here so much. I super appreciate it. Don't know you, me, that's not fair. So yeah, Roberta's walking animation here just does not look right, because this was not the correct character model that's supposed to be doing this right now. So, sorry, I was just making fun of the thief's voice. So we don't actually need to chase the thieves down, because now that we've seen the cutscene, we have successfully set up the glitch. So, after doing all that setup, what has that achieved? It turns Roberta into an alarm clock. So because there's specific audio that's supposed to play for Tor during that cutscene, there's not a specific voice quip that's associated for Roberta there. So her jump gets replaced with an alarm clock sound. So all of that set up just for a complete joke. Yeah, so that is, on top of that, if I jump and grab this ledge, it also starts like this weird woodpecker sound, and it sounds like the engine is running, and weirdly enough, the volume of it is dependent on the camera angle. It's, why? Why is this a thing? That's all I have to say, is just why, Okay, oh, I didn't know it goes into the load screen too. That's really funny. Anyway, so I've got one more thing to show off for you folks tonight, but this is by far the hardest thing I'm going to show you in this glitch exhibition. As Monster was saying in that donation earlier, I literally learned this 2 nights ago in order to have it ready. Essentially replaced another kind of 2 party trick glitches with something a little more ridiculous here. All right, So this save file, let me break this down here. This save file is set up in a very specific way. We are in, I don't know what act, it doesn't matter. So this is Gort the Merchant. Earlier in this save file, I bought several things from him so that the next time I talk to him, he tries to sell me a specific map. We need that specific text box to appear. On top of that, I've also completed a mini game in Meridell Village. It's essentially darts. Click your cursor on the spinning wheel type of thing. Like a Neopets minigame on the website, essentially, but in-game. And so I have completed that so that another NPC in Meridell will have a line of dialogue that now shows up. Both of those 2 pieces of information are very important, okay? So what I'm going to attempt to do is a form of text storage where I can run around with Tor while there is a text box on screen. And the inputs for this are pretty tricky. So this is probably going to take me a couple of tries. But we'll see how many times. We'll see if I can get this quickly enough here. Not quite. So what I'm trying to do is talk to Gord as I'm mid-air, which will cause me to fall out of the air, and that'll allow me to start running during the text box. Hopefully. Not quite. Almost. Yeah, so he's also going to walk around too, so this can be a little bit annoying sometimes. Got it. Okay. So that's the first part. So now that we've activated this text box storage, I can actually let go of everything except the stick. Tor will just keep running when he's in this state for some reason. He basically keeps going until he bonks into a wall, and then he'll stop running. So I have to make sure he doesn't bonk into any walls here. But now that this text box is on screen, it's loaded into a portion of the game's memory because that's what we're reading right now. And so now what we're going to do is deload the map where Gord was. And so because of that, Gord and all of his associated text and stuff is going to completely unload from the game because we're not supposed to need it anymore. And then that's going, is it right here? No, yeah, okay, this is going to start happening. So now, because there is no longer a text box, like, because we unloaded the character, there's no longer a text box and things we're supposed to display here. So it's just filling up the text window with a bunch of junk data. And it's actually writing that into the area of memory where the last seen text box was stored. And so now that's going to close because I had another line of dialogue come up automatically. And so that's the first part of the setup, is setting up that text storage so we can essentially write some junk data into another area of the game's memory. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to run all the way back to Meridell Village and go do the same glitch but on a different NPC, and that one is a much harder setup. So, Conception, I don't know if we got any more messages, but while we're making our way to Meridell here, if you got anything to read, now's a good time.
Oh, I sure do. We had a $3 donation come in from Tempest Mask 1000, who said, I have come from the depths of Splatoon 3 to give $3 and support a friend, Jaxler, as he speedruns a game I never realized existed. I did have a single Neopet who I still think is in my house. I don't remember his name, but I'll find out one day. He was a green crocodile-like pal. That said, thanks for reminding me of some nostalgia jacks, and best of luck with the run. Also, Bergie.
Bergie! So-called free thinkers when they hear the word Bergie. All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you for the donation as well. I really appreciate it. We're going to be coming into town now. So there's this little girl in town that has like a random chance of spawning in every time we like unload and reload some of the NPCs in. And then on top of that, there is a 1 1/3 chance to get her to say the line of text that we need in order to set up the next text box that we need to perform the glitch on. So I'm going to run back and forth here until we get the correct NPC to spawn in. So this might take a little bit here. There she is. Okay. So she's the redhead right here in front. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to Graham here while jumping, which is going to reset my gravity. Let's see how quickly I can get this. Okay, so I got the glitch, but it is a 1 1/3 chance of getting the right line of dialogue that you need. So I will eventually get it. Okay, second try. That's really hard. So the problem with Ella there is Ella is so short that you have a very small window to actually press square there to open the dialogue box. So now we are running around with the dialogue box. What a fun wheel. And so these text boxes are set up in a very specific way. We're doing very specific text boxes because we're trying to arrange the memory in a very certain way. Because like I mentioned when we were doing money duping earlier, text boxes don't just have to have characters and text. They can also have instructions, like, running a bit of code or giving me 500 Neo points. So what we're essentially doing is arbitrary code execution, where what we're doing is what we're writing to the end of a text box is essentially a text macro that was left over by the game's developers as a debugging feature. So if I go into this load zone, text is going to freak out again, and then when the text box completes, wait for it, boom. So we did the glitch successfully, so a lot of things have just changed about the game state right now. I currently have a new sword and shield, I have this piece of armor, and the sky turns dark. On top of that, if we go into my inventory, I have a bunch of new items for some reason. So I have a couple of each potion, I have some healing items now, some ergy fruit, and a couple other things about the game state are different now. Essentially, the game thinks we are in Act 2 right now, which if you have played this game before, makes 0 sense because Act 2 is a really short act where you play as Roberta in Fairyland. But we are currently in the overworld as Tor. So this is actually like a complete like gameplay softlock. Like there is no way to continue from here. But there's like a bunch of different like weird properties of the world state. So like for example, I'm not going to show it here because it'll take a little bit of time to reload the map. But if I were to leave this area and come back, this bridge would be fixed. Even though we've done none of the main quests to do that at all. We also have a couple of health and mana like upgrades as well that the game just gives us. And again, this is all part of that like debug functionality that was like left in the game's code but was never used for anything like in the actual retail product. The code is still there. And because we essentially did all of that text box nonsense, we basically rewrote it back into existence. So if we go, like, for example, I know it's kind of like weird to wrap your head around, but like for example, because we're in Act 2, there's going to be a massive shadowy fog wall here that like is normally not here. So see, that wasn't here before, and it's here now because we've tricked the game into thinking we're in Act 2. And if I were to go ahead and make a save, I'll actually just show this as an example. If I were to go ahead and make a save right here and load it, it would show the Act 2 icon. Wrong thing. Hold on. Wait for it. Memory cards are slow. Yep, see, we're in Act 2, which again makes no sense whatsoever. So yeah, so you might be wondering, well, there's arbitrary code execution in this game. Why doesn't it let you credit swarp? And the reason is we don't have a setup to credit swarp yet. There may be a theoretical way one day because there is some sort of macro that lets you like enable every progress flag in the game, which would in theory enable the flag that's just like, hey, you've beaten the game and give you a credit swarp. But because the memory management and these setups are so particular, no setup has been discovered for anything like that. So if you want to help out Monster and found some setup like that, then I'll show the Discord in just a moment. But that's everything I wanted to show off for the Glitch exhibition. I want to give a huge shout out to Monster. That whole arbitrary code execution setup is really, really challenging. And Monster basically taught it to me over the course of an hour via Twitch chat. I mentioned her name earlier. She made this practice tool, like all of this stuff she coded herself in like assembly, which if you don't know is like almost essentially machine language. On top of that, has discovered so much for this game and has been such a big part of our community. So Monster, thank you so much for everything you've done for this game. Really appreciate you. Also want to shout out another runner, Cole. Cole was the original runner for this game. He, along with a bunch of other old heads, found like a lot of like the really like classic stuff, like the ledge flying and the mega jumping and stuff like that. And Cole's been in the community for a long time, and I really want to thank him for everything he's done to support this community. That being said, that's all I wanted to show off. So I'll just part by saying, again, if you watch this and you're really interested in giving this game a try, some of this stuff was pretty tricky, but I believe that this is a beginner-friendly run that anyone can try. And get like a run done somewhere under an hour and 10 minutes. So I have a full suite of videos on YouTube going over beginner strats for every different portion of the game, on top of how to set up the practice tools and to make effective use of them. Other than that, if you liked my runs tonight, I'm Jaxler. You can find me at Twitch on Jaxler1. I stream this game and just like a whole bunch of different obscure speedruns that no one's ever heard of before. But I don't want to take up too much of everyone else's time because I think I'm running a little bit over with how long things took. So thank you all so much. Have a great night. And thank you all to everyone who's here in person. This was so awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.